So welcome back to Total War 3 Kingdoms and to another battle replay, and we have another siege today, and the scene has been set. There is a rebellion in XILIANG as Ma Teng and his son Ma Chao have risen up in rebellion against the cruel tyrant Dong Zhuo. However, Dong Zhuo, not wanting to brook any sort of treachery from his homeland, has come forth and decides to meet the rebels face to face. However, as he marches through, Ma Teng seizes the initiative as Dong Zhuo's army is resting up in the small town of Anding. And so, without further ado, let's go through the battle replay, the army compositions today. So on this side, played by Mech Grim, we have the detachment of Ma Chao, and Ma Teng has decided to enlist the assistance of some sympathetic governors and also some less reputable sources, as some Yellow Turban rebels join in, seeing Ma Teng perhaps as the lesser evil. But of course we have Ma Chao leading this detachment. Ma Chao himself is one of the stronger vanguards in the game. In campaign, his bonuses are very strong, but of course they don't pertain to a multiplayer battle because we don't have to deal with the campaign map. However, he is still very strong. If we have a look here, we can see that Flames of the Phoenix, very standard for a vanguard, as is Roar of the Beast, but Internal Blaze is Ma Chao's unique ability, and this obviously is an infinite thing, so he has a much stronger charge bonus than even regular vanguards. He has more mass, more charge speed. However, he is likely to become impetuous and charge all on his own, but even so, he is certainly one of the stronger vanguards in the game. We have Huang Shao as well. Huang Shao is arguably the strongest duelist in the game, just because his melee evasion is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this is 95% here, which means he's incredibly difficult to hit, and that's before being buffed by anything. So if he has any melee evasion buffs to stack on top of him, he becomes basically impossible to hit. So yeah, the Yellow Turban generals just overall are very, very strong, and Huang Shao in particular as a duelist is also very good. So he's going to be certainly a factor in this battle, and also a strategist, Tao Qian, who under normal circumstances would probably be loyal to the Han Empire and its Prime Minister. But in this case, Tao Qian has decided to join in the revolt, perhaps seeing that Dong Zhuo has finally gone too far with his tyrannical ways. But of course, a strategist at maximum level means that you get access to some buffs, so some range damage. Stifling Deluge means if he's nearby a duel of some sort, or even just a general who's fighting other units, their abilities will have an increased cooldown, which is very, very useful. And also Inspiring Surge. To be honest, he does actually also have Wisdom of the River. So Wisdom of the River obviously is probably the most useful strategist ability overall, just because it really is a hefty debuff for a little while. Whether it's affecting a duel between generals or just a fight between units, very, very good. A cursory glance over this force as well. We have a couple of trebuchets up on the hill over here. Obviously they're going to have flaming shot as well, so the town of Anding here is almost certainly going to be set ablaze. At the front here as well, we can also see that we have several units of archer militia. Obviously, when you're on the attack, or the defense really, you have to cut your corners somewhere, and generally speaking, you know, on romance mode in particular, you're going to have to invest a lot in your generals to be competitive. So archer militia, they will still get the job done, especially with the flaming shot. Although to be fair, I don't know if they've got flaming shot. I think they do, because doubtless they'll be in Tao Qian's retinue, and of course the strategist will imbue flaming shot, so they'll be able to set fire to the mostly wooden town of Anding here. And then the main force, as we have a look forward here, we can see that some Yellow Turbans are present. There's a full force actually of Yellow Sky Heralds, which are not a bad unit, honestly. They've got a decent amount of armor piercing, obviously, with those large maces that they wield, but as with most of the Yellow Turban units like this, their armor is very limited, so they're going to have to be very careful at any defensive archers that are in place. And also we have a hefty amount of the Protectors of Heaven, obviously one of, if not the strongest unit of all-round infantry in the game, because they're good against mounted, they have good armor, and they're just fantastic in melee all around. Obviously they also have access to a lot of formations when a strategist is present, and that's pretty much all for Grim's army. So we'll head over to the other side now, I think, and Ma Teng's detachment. Huang Zhong has been committed forth by Liu Biao, so obviously Liu Biao again feels sympathy for Ma Teng's cause, and Huang Zhong is a very good sentinel as well. He is one of those generals which is a little bit more focused around archery as well. So he's capable of dealing damage at range and then getting into melee and being very, very solid in there. And while scholars and sentinels are generally agreed upon at this point to be the strongest duelists and not champions, which is kind of ironic, but again, it comes down to very high melee evasion. It's not quite as high as Huang Shao's, but it's still 80%, which is going to be very difficult to deal with in melee for any non-sentinels, or at least if there isn't any debuffs happening. However, also, another unscrupulous source of assistance that Ma Teng is calling upon here, because he appears to have gone for some pirates for help, and this is Gan Ning. So Gan Ning, of course, again, is another archery-focused hero, actually, but he is a vanguard, so he's going to be much more focused around dealing damage to units. Vanguards are actually not great in duels, just because their melee evasion is relatively low and they don't have quite the same tankiness in a duel as a champion or a sentinel. And that goes for Ma Teng as well, who is also a vanguard, although he is much more sort of traditionally a vanguard, much like his son Ma Chao. He's not quite as strong as Ma Chao, honestly, but he, Final Rush is not a particularly useful ability when you're not in campaign, because if the battle outcome is decided, it's useful for running down troops. One thing Ma Teng does have, however, is the Unyielding Earth ability, which is usually a commander's ability, which allows him to give him and units around him a huge charge resistance, making them essentially immune to a charge, but also a lot of melee evasion. So for a little while at least, he is able to give himself a lot of melee evasion, and Ma Teng actually has a fairly high melee evasion at his base, so not terrible in a duel as far as a vanguard goes, but still certainly not as strong as a champion, sentinel or scholar, or even a veteran for that matter from the Yellow Turbans. Having a cursory glance as well over this army, we can see that there are several units of the mercenary infantry, so that will be in part of Gan Ning's retinue. Mercenary infantry, of course, are medium axemen, which there are very few medium axemen in the game. Really only the outlaws and Sun Jian have got access to such units, and the mercenary infantry are the only shielded version of that, so very useful unit all around for attacking a settlement like this, because they're a very aggressive unit, as well as being able to defend themselves with... Their armor values aren't terrible when you consider what they cost and what you would be getting for your money otherwise. I think their armor is actually slightly worse than the standard saber infantry, but they have a much higher charge and also armor piercing damage, of course. He's also got some saber militia, so again, this is where some money has been saved. Saber militia are obviously the cheapest of all these sword units, some of the cheapest infantry as well. Obviously not great stats, but still putting a lot of pressure on in melee. And of course we have some more arch militia over here, which is good to see, so they're going to be able to put on a lot of pressure from a range standpoint. I'm a big proponent of being able to use archers when you're on the attack, because it gives the defenders something to think about. Oh, excuse me, my allergies really are getting to me. We have 4 units as well, as 4 more units of the Saber Militia, again dressed in Ma Teng's purple, his faction colour. So again, not the most deadly unit by any means, but it is going to still be a lot of manpower that we're going to have to chew our way through on the defence. And then looking over here, we've got some more mercenary infantry, a lot more mercenary infantry in fact, and also this is a big investment. This pretty much is what Froggy, who's playing as this army, has gone for. He's gone for 3 units of the Defenders of Earth, which are incredibly potent. The closest thing I would compare them to is if anyone's played Shogun 2 and has used the Shimazu Heavy Gunners or the Hojo Fire Rockets. Think of that, when they hit, they'll knock you over. Won't necessarily kill an awful lot on the first volley unless they're very clustered, in which case they'll rack up a kill count very quickly. But the suppression ability is also very useful because it means that they'll be able to break up a charge. So the Defenders of Earth, very, very, very strong if they can be used effectively. But they do have a low man count in their unit, only 60, and also it is worth mentioning that they are also very expensive. So it was a big investment here. Essentially, they could have just gone for 1 and then gone for maybe a few units of standard saber infantry. But we'll see if that pays off, because they could bombard the settlement to great effect. Meanwhile, let's go through the defences. So over here you can see that I've set up the barricades in the middle here, leaving a couple of roads open to be traversed here and here. Basically this means that the attackers are going to have to march for quite a long way through the settlement if they want to avoid the barricades to meet up with one another. Also, I'm not defending this outer part of the wall here because I figured, all things considered, it would be better to just focus our attention on one side first and then allow one side to fall and then let the barricades do their work, because if we go right to the outer walls all the way around the settlement, we're going to stretch ourselves too thin and it's just not going to work. We'll go through both armies here together, so Dongzhuo, the Han Empire marches, and I do like Dongzhuo's faction colours as well, the sort of red and black. A couple of units of G Militia here, so as the defenders obviously we get less money, so we're going to have to cut corners in a few places, but G Militia will get the job done. They don't have any advanced formations, but they will at least make it so that cavalry can't charge in through the gaps, and they'll be pretty efficient against generals, honestly, as long as they're backed up. I mean, vanguards will do a tremendous amount of damage to them very quickly, but even so, only 1 unit of cavalry, sort of genuine cavalry, seems to be on the field today though, and it's this unit of mounted saber militia that I've got. I just brought them as a token force, just in case any archers were left sticking out. Oh, excuse me. I can only apologise for my sniffling. Meanwhile, over here, you can see that this is where we are putting up a defence against Grimm's advance, and you can see that Liu Zhang is here. So Liu Zhang is right in and amongst this formation, so again, one of the Han governors that has sent forth some troops to assist Dongzhuo, a commander. Very basic commander, he's just got the generic abilities, but commanders have really grown on me actually recently. I used to think that commanders were just kind of, why would you ever bring them over a strategist? But I've changed my mind. Commanders, I'm for them now. We'll see if Liu Zhang can do anything useful in this battle. We also have a unit of spear guards, so I brought 4 units of these spear guards actually. The tortoise formation is incredibly useful because it makes them immune to arrows from the front, which is going to be very useful for holding down the defensive position here at the front, and also they're a little bit cheaper than the heavy spear guards, so a little bit more affordable considering the amount of money we had available to us. G militia here as well, backing them up. Well, actually there's Jian sword guards here, so this is part of Han Sui's retinue. When forced to make a choice between loyalty and friendship, Han Sui chose loyalty, and he's fighting for the Han Empire. So the Jian sword guards are here. Again, swordsmen are one of those areas in the game as well which are kind of lacking. But the Jian sword guards are, generally speaking, the strongest unit of infantry which everyone has available to them, because they can adopt all sorts of formations, and they are durable and strong. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the Jian sword guards, but even so, they will still be a good unit on the front line. I am a big fan of these guys, however, the Yellow Dragons. Yellow Dragons have got very limited armour, but they do have a fantastic shield value, and they also do a tremendous amount of damage in melee, especially from an armour-piercing perspective. So any elite troops, such as the Protectors of Heaven, are going to be would do well to avoid the Yellow Dragons, because it's a very good matchup for them. Some Archer Militia here on the front, obviously again just a way to save some money. Saber Militia, much the same. G Militia as well, the rest of Dong Zhuo's army. Going to be up here with more Saber Militia, more Jian Sword Guards. We've got some more Yellow Dragons actually, Saber Militia. Dong Zhuo himself actually, nearby a unit of my Shield Guards, is right here, and he's going to be on the front line, so certainly not pleased with the rebellion that he's facing today. Dong Zhuo is donning his armour and wielding his sword once more. And then we have Han Sui, of course, again, with actually, a unit of Protectors of Heaven guarding this one, so they won't have the shields that the Spear Guards have, but they will be much stronger in melee. Oh, excuse me. Meanwhile, Han Sui is, of course, a Sentinel, and he's a strong Sentinel as well because he has Tenacity of Steel. He's pretty basic as far as the Sentinel goes, but even so, Tenacity of Steel, as well as that very high melee evasion, makes him a very good duelist indeed. But Huang Shao is still the superior duelist nonetheless. And then the rest of my army here at the back, we can see that there are 3 units in the town centre of the Fury of Beihai, ready to attack the force of Ma Teng as they move in through the settlement. They are essentially the same as regular crossbows, only they're just a little bit better in every way, but in particular, the ammunition count is much higher, which the main problem with crossbows is their very limited ammunition count. It's not something the Fury of Beihai or the Thunder of Jianan have to deal with, which of course means that Kong Rong is my strategist today, so again, he's certainly not in favour of the Yellow Turbans, which, considering Ma Teng has enlisted their help, Kong Rong has been brought back into the fold of the Han Empire, leaving the coalition against Dong Zhuo, and he is going to be here today in support of the Cruel Tyrant. A couple of units of Black Mountain Marauders. They scare nearby enemies. They're very, very effective in melee at dealing damage. Don't have any shields like the Mercenary Infantry, but still a very strong unit indeed. And of course, that means that Dong Zhuo has also enlisted some perhaps slightly less than morally sound help with Zhang Yan, the Black Mountain King, the bandit, of course. He's a good champion overall. I mean, all of the unique champions are all relatively good, but the reason I brought Zhang Yan was not only because of his unique units, but also the fact that he has Flames of the Phoenix and Binding Fury, which means he's actually pretty decent against units as well. He's sort of a halfway house between champion and vanguard. Well, maybe more of a champion than that, but even so, Flames of the Phoenix is a very useful ability for him to have. Got some more Spear Guards over here, but of course the main event for my army is the mighty Lu Bu, the warrior without equal. As far as Vanguard goes, he's a terrifying presence on the battlefield. He actually isn't the best duelist though, because this ability here, Smouldering Fury, gives him a terrible melee evasion. It makes him essentially every attack will hit him at the highest level, which is not great in a duel at all. You want Lu Bu to avoid duels as much as possible if you're outside of campaign. But it will make him extremely devastating against units, and that's where Lu Bu is at his best, when he's just cleaving through the units of the enemy army. And also the Dragon's Gaze is a nice debuff for enemy units that are around him, and Rage of Lu Bu actually deals less damage, I think, than Flames of the Phoenix, but it does it in a much wider area, which kills a lot more men. And I think that's just about it. Some more G Militia, some more Archer Militia, and that is just about it. So without further ado, let us begin. And you can see that, of course, this is where the battle is going to get underway first of all, as Mek Grim's army is a little bit closer, and also this is where we have put up our initial defences a little bit more heavily. And you can see that anyone who has played Three Kingdoms will know that this is very necessary to do first of all, right off the bat, if the defenders are defending the outer layer. You need to set fire to the towers and destroy them pretty quickly. Otherwise they're going to do horrendous damage to your army, but in particular your generals. You can see over here that the fire arrows coming in from the archer militia, and actually the archer militia and the protectors of heaven from Dong Zhuo's side of the army are going to retreat here. Liu Zhang also giving that nature's ally buff, which I think makes all units unbreakable, which that's another point in the commander's favour. All of them are unbreakable. Meanwhile, you can see that Ma Teng has charged forward on his own. He did take a little bit of damage there on the advance, actually, but with no defence here, he could afford to do that. And that is, of course, going to mean that these towers are down now. So Ma Teng's army is not going to have quite the same level of resistance right from the off, but they will have to deal with the Fury of Beihai right there, attacking them very, very quickly. You can see that already the town of Anding is starting to look a little bit worse for wear. Dong Zhuo not too pleased with Ma Chao's taunting. You can see that the trebuchet, obviously, with its explosive ammunition, it's so much more effective when it's got the explosive ammunition. You can see that there is a lot of resistance that Mac Grim is going to have to go for here, and of course, to start with, he's just going to try and bombard the settlement, set fire to things. The smoke and the fire will not only debuff morale, but also lower the fatigue, and fatigue is a very important thing in Three Kingdoms, especially for cavalry, I have to say. One of the enemy units is fleeing, and that is because of archer militia firing at it. Also the damage it had already taken. You can see that I was thinking of probing the enemy archer line with my mounted saber militia, but I thought better of it because Ma Chao and Huang Shao would rip their way through militia tier cavalry like that. Meanwhile, you can see over here, Ma Teng and Gan Ning are nearby, but you know, this unit of G militia is certainly not in a particularly good place for them, because there are numerous archers which could bombard their position very, very easily. G militia honestly wouldn't be the worst thing to send up against a couple of vanguards like this. They would do a decent amount of damage, especially seeing as Ma Teng has already taken a little bit of damage, but they're completely unsupported here. They're going to be sent forward, and you can see here that Gan Ning using his archer abilities, and then there go the Defenders of Earth, and that's going to be pretty much an entire unit gone very, very quickly indeed. Over here things aren't looking great either. There are sort of returning salvos coming in, but also the first engagements are beginning. The Yellow Turbans being committed forward first. The Yellow Sky Heralds, the Mace Men. But unfortunately for the Mace Men of the Yellow Turbans, Dong Zhuo, a proud man, rightly or wrongly. But you can see here there's a lot of the G militia, but also Dong Zhuo himself charging into the Yellow Sky Heralds, and that's a good place for Dong Zhuo to be because they are just a sword unit, or mace men, but they aren't spears, which is a real problem. The Protectors of Heaven are coming in now, though, which will be a problem for Dong Zhuo. He's going to need to be very, very careful indeed if he doesn't want to get killed off very, very quickly. With the Protectors of Heaven, of course, one of the best units at dealing with mounted units in the game. Generals as well. Liu Zhang still holding down this side of things with the Yellow Dragons and some more reinforcing Protectors of Heaven over here. Those Yellow Sky Heralds actually getting shot in the back by a unit of returning archer militia. You can see that the pressure is starting to increase over on this side now. Ma Chao, Tao Qian and Huang Shao coming forwards, but Dong Zhuo doing a really good job here on the front line. Have a look here. Again, he's certainly not the most athletic figure, but with that thick armour and with that sword, you can see that doing a lot of damage there. A lot of those men will stand back up. You know, Flames of the Phoenix is a good ability, but it's one that isn't terribly damaging, although I say that, those Protectors of Heaven, with the addition of that archer fire as well, they're getting shredded by Dong Zhuo and his men. And also Dong Zhuo has an ability called Reign of Terror, which buffs all units around him for a little while, which he has been using up till this point. Meanwhile, you can see over here on this side, Ma Teng's army, fortunately for me, he's not actually spreading his forces out and going through this gate as well, because if he was, it would be much more difficult for me to focus down individual units like this. The Fury of Beihai starting to really bombard a unit of swordsmen over here. Fury of Beihai are fantastic as well. It's only Saber Militia, but I really want to cut down on the amount of manpower that the enemy has. If we can do that, we're going to be in a very good place. Meanwhile, you can see over here that the attackers only engaging in certain places, and the trebuchet is trying to aim at this big blob over here, which is definitely the right thing to do, because a nice hit in the middle of that. A lot of that is G Militia and Saber Militia, which is going to be it's going to be terrible for the morale of these units. But you can see here that completely unmoving on the front line. I should really use the debug camera. I'm not a fan of how it sort of makes the camera go over buildings like that. It's really awkward. But yeah, the spear guards are here. And they are holding the front line with relative ease. There are more forces coming in, however. The Yellow Sky Heralds. Close by as well, we have Tao Qian and Ma Chao. Meanwhile, there's also some fire ammunition coming in. Trying to go after the Protectors of Heaven. Liu Zhang is here, however, offering his buffs. And it is only Archer Militia he's going up against in melee, so Liu Zhang might not be the strongest melee combatant, but he'll be just fine at dealing with that sort of rabble. Lu Bu and Kong Rong still in reserve. I'm sending over Zhang Yan to sort of help out over here, as well as a few more units of infantry and archers, just to make sure, because as long as Ma Teng's army continues to take its time like this, we're going to be able to focus down Ma Chao's detachment a little bit easier. Meanwhile, Yellow Dragons coming over here as well, but unfortunately they are being focused down by archers, and in particular the Defenders of Earth are going to be good against the Yellow Dragons, suppressing fire, limiting their charge bonus, but also just dealing damage to them, because in melee they'll be able to tear their way through Saber Militia, of course, but those Defenders of Earth doing the business. Also getting a lot of friendly fire though. There's also some supporting units of Saber Militia getting ready to come in and help the Yellow Dragons, but as long as Ma Teng keeps taking his time like this, and as long as the Fury of Beihai continue to fire, we will be in a good place. Meanwhile, Liu Zhang is over here. He's getting right in and amongst it, but he's in a pretty bad place. You can see there a nasty hit coming in from Huang Shao, and Liu Zhang is thoroughly outmatched in melee by Huang Shao and Ma Chao. Dong Zhuo is here though, trying to offer some support to the loyal governor. And forward come the Jian Sword Guards as well, so the Jian Sword Guards and the G Militia coming forward, a good solid unit of infantry as well as a bit of anti-cavalry to try and help deal with those generals. Dong Zhuo coming in as well with one of those abilities. My unit of Spear Guards though at this point is broken, so damaged at this point they have to go. You can see the cavalry is also coming across. They're going to charge in, but I decide to think better of it, because if I charge right in there they'll connect with the Protectors of Heaven, so instead what I'm going to try and do is break the enemy units on the front line, although Huang Shao is going to break up the charge a little bit. But even so, the charge ultimately does connect, and that's going to be good against the Yellow Sky Heralds, offer a little bit of support as well to Dong Zhuo. Although having a look at this, you can see that there is actually a duel going on, and this is suicide from Liu Zhang. He is deciding to go into a duel with Huang Shao, so he is all but dead at this point. He is already dead. Meanwhile, Fury of Beihai continuing to fire, as well as some units of Archer Militia over here. The Archer Militia at this point primarily doing the damage, but at this point, you know, Ma Teng taking quite a long time to get through the limited defences out here, and again that is just playing into our hands. Han Sui and Zhang Yan over here, so Zhang Yan actually getting in and amongst the fight at this point. Although he does need to be somewhat careful. I mean, it is mostly just Yellow Sky Heralds he's fighting at the moment. But even so, that armor piercing could do a decent amount of damage to him. And there he goes again, using his active damage abilities, which is the reason I brought Zhang Yan in the first place. And if possible, I could try and get him into Ma Chao, deal a lot of damage to him. However, you can see over here that Liu Zhang's actually held his own reasonably well. He's actually done a decent amount of damage to Huang Shao. But this is surely going to be the end of him. Yeah, there he goes. Liu Zhang dead. The first general today falls, and unfortunately it is one of ours. The trebuchet is continuing to fire. But Dong Zhuo continuing to hold as well. He is at this point at half health. But he's done a good amount of damage. 318 kills. What's going on here? Archer Militia. And more Archer Militia still shooting away, and now we're starting to see a bit of a breakthrough for Ma Teng. He's starting to push his way further into the settlement. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I hate allergy season so much. Meanwhile, Saber Militia coming forwards, and they're going to try and break down this barricade. The Archer Militia shooting them at point blank. The shields are certainly going to help them there, especially against a lowly militia unit like this. But fortunately, we do have plenty of reinforcements on standby, including the Black Mountain Marauders and, of course, the mighty Lu Bu. Still over here though, this fight is still ongoing. Dong Zhuo, however, at this point is starting to think about pulling back, because with Huang Shao, though, Ma Chao actually routing, charging right in and amongst all of these spear units, as well as Dong Zhuo with his morale debuffs. Proved to be too much for the most splendid warrior. But Huang Xiao, however, is, I believe, unbreakable, so he's going to stay in here for as long as it takes, especially with the backup of the Protectors of Heaven. Zhang Yan, meanwhile, did pull back, because there were, of course, the on-rushing Protectors of Heaven, and he certainly doesn't want to be in melee with them. Han Sui is still holding this choke point over here, but he doesn't really want to be in melee with the Protectors of Heaven either. Still, Ma Teng's army is, again, being a bit too slow. It is a nasty choke point they have to go through, but at this point, you know, his ally is looking in dire straits. Ma Chao's army is starting to fall apart, and the worst thing about this, of course, is that our most powerful general and some of our most powerful infantry is still untouched. Not great for them, but this barricade is now on fire, and it has been destroyed, so now they have a straight shot into the settlement. Archer Militia being engaged in melee. The G Militia, however, are right here to lend some support. But more worryingly for the Saber Militia, Lu Bu is now going to be able to get into melee and deal some damage. As he charges in, right in amongst it, upon Red Hair, wielding Sky Piercer. Just cleaving through 5 men per swing. Zhang Yan still over here. You can see the Dongzhuo. This defense over here is starting to look a little bit thin on the ground now, honestly. Archer Militia. There's still some Jian Sword Guards, but again, there's other units of G Militia as well. Huang Xiao is wounded. You know, and to be fair, you know, Grimm's army is now looking very much on its last legs. And you can see over here there is the Spear Guards, but again, Yellow Sky Heralds and Protectors of Heaven on the way over to pressure that line as well, now that it's just a single unit of Spear Guards. Lu Bu, however, continuing to push through. I wish there was a way to make the banners less prominent. Like, I like the banners, but there's far too many of them. They obscure what's going on. There probably is an option for that, and I'm just blind or something. Well, Lu Bu continuing to charge his way through, and the mercenary infantry made of sterner stuff. Obviously, they are tougher, and also they deal AP damage. But the problem that Ma Teng's army has, no spearman. Which means Lu Bu on Red Hair is going to be able to cleave through everything except their generals. Huang Zhong will certainly give Lu Bu pause. Huang Zhong would actually beat Lu Bu in a duel. That's how good Sentinels are in a duel compared to Vanguards. And you can see there that still mercenary infantry running. The Fury of Beihai at this point are running lower on ammunition, but we're still trying to do as much damage as we can to the Archer Militia and the Defenders of Earth that are there. Speaking of which, my G Militia is looking very haggard at this point. Meanwhile, Zhang Yan's still here. Han Sui is actually engaged, was engaged with the Protectors of Heaven, and he actually is going to be victorious here, purely because of the Archer support. There's no way that even a Sentinel would have been victorious against Protectors of Heaven, if not for the help from the Archer Militia, which were right here. Could have also pushed up those Spear Guards, to be honest with you, but that also probably would have obscured the Archers a little bit more. Huang Xiao actually routs, so he's not unbreakable. That's interesting. So, unbelievably, we are actually going to win outright on this flank. You can see over here as well that this unit of Spear Guards fighting on the front line again. These banners, still not a big fan of them. But Yellow Sky Heralds, Protectors of Heaven, they will beat the Spear Guards over a long engagement, but the Spear Guards just need to hold them in place for as long as they possibly can for some support to arrive. Lu Bu did pull back, actually. But now you can see that there's a lot more Saber Militia on the way forwards, as well as all of Froggy's generals, Ma Teng, Huang Zhong and Gan Ning, all in one big blob. Dongzhuo using his Reign of Terror ability there. Still fighting, right on the front line. He and Lu Bu have already done an awful lot of damage in this battle. Dongzhuo proving that he's not just a fat slot. Still this side, the fires have gone out on this side. And now Zhang Yan coming in, so yeah, this is going to be the end of Grimm's army. Zhang Yan is going to be able to chase down Tao Chen, and any hit that lands on him is going to be devastating from a champion. And that really is the end of this defense over here. I mean, well, attack, I should say. The Spear Guards are also here just holding the line, but of course, it's also going to be support for them. Meanwhile, Lu Bu and Dongzhuo, I mean, Ma Teng is all up in this business as well. But the Spear Guards are holding him in place. And look at this, you can see the routing happening. These basic units of Saber Militia, even the Master Infantry, panicking at the very sight of Lu Bu. More fire arrows coming in. Gan Ning is here. Yeah. Gan Ning trying to go after Dong Zhuo, but when he's in and amongst these spears like this, that's not going to be the worst engagement for Dong Zhuo. Meanwhile, Ma Teng routing among the spears near Lu Bu was never going to go too well. Meanwhile, Huang Zhong actually has an opportunity here to try and get in here and attack Lu Bu. As it is, Huang Zhong is trying to sort of maintain Ma Teng's status of being alive. But this is just going to give Lu Bu the opportunity to get even more kills. You can see that he's already up to 464 kills. He's not even been in melee for that long. The Rage of Lu Bu. It's a very strong ability, despite not dealing a lot of damage overall, making it, again, not ideal for a duel. Its area of effect is so wide. Wisdom of the River being popped over here, though, by Tao Qian, trying to help out his troops, but there are also the Black Mountain Marauders on the way over here. They're going to be dealing some morale damage, but Zhang Yan has decided to dismount amongst the Yellow Sky Heralds and fight them. And Zhang Yan is more at home here than most champions, just because he has Flames of the Phoenix and Binding Fury. Yeah, and these Yellow Sky Heralds are going to be no match for a fully upgraded Zhang Yan. Meanwhile, what have we over here? Lu Bu over here getting a huge amount of kills there with the Rage of Lu Bu. He's up to 727, so he's carving through Ma Teng's infantry at an alarming rate. Huang Zhong needs to be in here, to be honest. Without him, this infantry is just falling to pieces. Spearmen are moving forward. Kong Rong is also coming forward to apply some debuffs. Honestly, though, my spearmen are on their last legs at this point, just because the Defenders of Earth, with their explosive arrows, as it were, their oil arrows, are dealing a huge amount of damage to my infantry, but Lu Bu at this point is really all I need. Ma Teng's army is pretty much in full retreat at this point. Huang Zhong is their last hope. Another Rage of Lu Bu coming down there, 798 kills. Forward they go. Lu Bu does need to be careful though, he's taking a little bit of damage, and Huang Zhong is still fully healthy. Zhang Yan still here. May have noticed a little duel symbol there. Huang Zhong was challenging Lu Bu to a duel, but I wasn't born yesterday. That's not a fight that Lu Bu wants at all. He doesn't want to fight any Sentinel champion in a duel. He's for killing units. He's terrible in a duel. Smouldering Fury really hamstrings him there. Zhang Yan, though, carving his way through all of these Yellow Sky Heralds. Meanwhile, back here, combination of the Black Mountain Marauders and the Spear Guards at this point, managing to do damage to the Protectors of Heaven, even with Tao Qian's support. Not going so well for him. Lu Bu, though, over here, you can see how quickly he's taking damage at the hands of Huang Zhong, which just goes to show Huang Zhong really should have been in melee sooner. But Lu Bu up to nearly 900 kills at this point as he continues to carve his way through. And Huang Zhong actually does rout. Huang Zhong actually got off his horse, which I'm not sure why he did that. Kong Rong coming in here as well, just charging in to try and break what's left, because Lu Bu is really on his last legs. 975 kills though, so he's going to get up past 1,000. Lu Bu with 1,000 plus kills, a true warrior of the Three Kingdoms. Tao Qian still very much alive, applying his Wisdom of the River debuff pretty continuously. Another unit of Spear Guards coming in though at this point. It's a pointless endeavour. Zhang Yan was victorious, taking a little bit of damage, but he's going to be able to recharge over there as well. Lu Bu, yeah, 1,021 kills. At this point, Lu Bu and Kong Rong. Kong Rong actually taking a few hits there from Huang Zhong, but I'm also trying to rout Huang Zhong. Fury of Beihai coming in melee, and Huang Zhong routs again, and that's going to be the end of the battle. Lu Bu getting over 1,000 kills there, and you can see the Dong Zhuo's detachment. He did very well as well. I mean, Dong Zhuo's no joke as a vanguard. He's certainly not as strong as Lu Bu, of course, or even Ma Chao, but he has his uses. You know, Dong Zhuo is not just a fat slob. Meanwhile, Ma Chao and Ma Teng's rebellion has been quelled, although both of them didn't actually die. Both of them did rout off the field, so perhaps they will have a chance to try again, but they are now enemies of the state, and certainly Dong Zhuo will not rest until he has their heads on spikes. So, hope you enjoyed this. I really do enjoy Three Kingdoms, to be honest with you. I know that it's not quite as popular as Reforged as far as the content that I make, but even so, I do like a bit of Three Kingdoms every now and then. So, hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next.